Hello everybody, welcome to test number 2 review sheets for periods 1 and 2. Your test will be December 9th, that is on Wednesday. For period 8-9, it will be on Thursday, December 10th. We got the review sheet answers up here right now, and not all these videos are getting views. We actually have a live audience today. We have 5 people in attendance, so I'm becoming a little bit of a rock star. That being said, let's get started. Inequality. First things first, I look at the type of inequality it is. If it's less than, it's convergent. If it's greater than, it's divergent. So right off the bat, I can eliminate the divergent solutions. My orders have divergent solutions. Now I'm going to pretend it's a regular equation, and I'm going to solve it as an equation. It's Mr. X squared. He wants to party. He can party now. He parties with bubbles. X plus, X minus, what multiplies to 5? 1 and 5, so they subtract the 4, they sure do. Set each factor equal to 0. X equals 1. X equals negative 5. So my values are negative 5 and 1, which means my answer must be choice 4. If I wanted to put that on another line, I would put my negative 5, I would put my 1, I would put open circle because there's no equals, and I would choose. If I'm going too fast for you, well, the video, pause it. Slow it down to show. Number 2, I can't have a radical in the denominator, so what I do is I multiply by the conjugate. And remember, the conjugate means switch the middle sign. So I multiply by radical 6 plus 1. On top, I distribute. I get 3 radical 6 plus 3. On the bottom, I FOIL. 6 plus 1 radical 6 minus 1 radical 6 minus 1. My plus 1 and my minus 1 radical 6 cancel out. They always will, because the conjugate, the average, the integral always cancel. 6 minus 1 is 5. Now, what we also have here is we can use our multiple choice strategy. Always look for these multiple choice questions if I can use my multiple choice strategy. So I can type in the original problem. Whoops. So I can do alpha y equals enter 3 over radical 6 minus 1. I can do second test equals, and I can type in each solution. And when I type in alpha y equals enter 3 radical 6 plus 3 over 5, hopefully I will get 1. Remember, 1 is equivalent, 0 is not equivalent. So there's 2 different ways to do the problem. Keep in mind, if it's not multiple choice, you have to do it mathematically by hand, like we did here. But if it's a multiple choice question, utilize multiple choice strategies, because they will help you on the exam, but also help you in the written exam in G. Number 3, powers of I. When you see a power of I, your first step is to take the power and divide it by 4. So we're going to do 25 divided by 4, which is 6.25. I don't care how many times it goes in. I care what the decimal is. Once I have the decimal, I match the decimal, I match it up to my chart. To know your chart, we have a song for that. I'm not going to sing it. If you want to hear it, go check out my music page. 1i, negative 1, negative I, 0, 25, 50, 75. 0.25 is equivalent to I, so this whole thing is equivalent to I. It's not I times I. That's a common mistake. The whole thing just becomes I. Moving right along. The roots are, whenever you see real or imaginary, rational or irrational, equal or unequal, we deal with the plus or minus discriminant. So, it's in standard form. A equals 5, B equals -2, C equals 1. So what's plus or minus radical? -2 squared minus 4 times 5 times 1. I suggest you use a calculator for this. In fact, why not? Let's do it. There's my calculator. We've got parentheses, -2 squared minus 4 times 5 times 1. Don't type the radical in, just type what's underneath the radical. I get -16. Plus or minus radical -16. Is that real or imaginary? That's imaginary. If it's a positive perfect square, it's going to be real, it's going to be rational, it's going to be unequal. If I have a positive non-perfect square, it's going to be real, it's going to be irrational, because radical 35 is irrational and unequal. If it is 0, plus or minus radical 0, well, that's real, that's rational, and that's equal, because positive 0 and negative 0 are the same thing. And if it's negative, like the example we had here, which was -16, it's imaginary. And if it's imaginary, I don't care about rational, irrational, equal, or unequal. Now, another way to do this problem is you could have gone to the calculator, you could have gone to y equals, you could have typed the equation in, 5x squared minus 2x plus 1. You could have looked at the graph, and based on the graph, based on the fact that it does not hit the x-axis, the roots are going to be imaginary. If it hits once, it's going to be equal. If it hits twice, it's going to be real and unequal. And to determine whether it's rational or irrational, remember you can hit second calc, 0. Now, this isn't going to work here because for this particular example, I can't find the roots because they don't exist. They're imaginary. But you would move your cursor along there and find it like we did in class. That's it. Which function's one-to-one? Well, I know a one-to-one function must pass the vertical and horizontal line test. So, I'm going to look at the graphs. Choice 1 is absolute value of x. You don't know how to type absolute value in? Yikes. Math, num, ABS, absolute value of x, graph. Does this pass the vertical line test? Yes. It passes the vertical line test. So that makes it a function. Does it pass the horizontal line test? Nope. So that can't be your answer. So now I'm going to try choice 2, which is 2 to the power of x. 2 to the power of x. Graph. Does it pass the vertical line test? Yes. It's going up and up, but it's never flattening out. Does it pass the horizontal line test? Yes. Again, it's flattening out here, but it's never touching the x-axis. Later in the course, we're going to talk more about the graphs of exponential functions. You still have Algebra 1 as well, but it passes both the vertical and the horizontal line test. That's your answer. Let's quickly talk about why choices 3 and choices 4 is not the answer. Well, choice 3, x squared. It passes the vertical line test, but it does not pass the horizontal line test, so that can't be the answer. And choice 4, well, what's that do? X minus 2 to the third. Let's get rid of this red. Parentheses, x minus 2 to the power of 3. Minus 2x squared plus 1 graph. This thing definitely does not pass the horizontal line test. This horizontal line actually hits it 3 times. The only one that passes both is choice. Moving along. If you get this question wrong, just this. The conjugate. You need to know the conjugate, you switch the middle sign. So if the middle sign is plus, the middle sign becomes minus. The first sign does not change. All you have to know for a conjugate is to switch the middle sign. Don't get this stuff wrong. I have nothing more to say about that. Inequality again. This time I have a divergent solution, and I know my divergent solution has an OR. So it can't be choice 3 and 4. Remember, this here is a symbol for 4. So to solve absolute value, we have a song for that as well. Absolute value, isolate. We're isolated. Then we create 2 equations of inequalities. 8 plus y is greater than 3. That's my first one. My second one, I switch the inequality and I negate the right-hand side. Now I solve each of them. Y is greater than negative 5. Y is less than negative 11. So, which answer has negative 11 and negative 5? Choice 1. If I wanted to put that onto a number line, I have negative 11. I have negative 5. They're both open. It's divergent. So it's shaded away. Remember, you could also test 0. In this case, 0 would work. So if I want to do this by testing 0, and I plug 0 in, I would get the absolute value of 8 is greater than 3, which is true, which means 0 should be in the shaded region, which it is. Quadratic inequality. Another question that we're going to get right by letting the calculator do the work for us. However, before we put this into the calculator, we need to get y by itself. So I subtract 7 from both sides. And now I put this into my calculator. Let's get my calculator back up here. Can you imagine people in this course don't have a calculator? That is not going to lead you to being successful. So if you don't have a calculator, you better get one. You better figure something out. Because it is not going to work out well for you. X squared plus 6x minus 7. Now to get the inequality in, I go to my left-hand column here, and I'm going to keep on hitting enter until I get the less than. The less than is not the arrow pointing up, but it's the arrow pointing down. Graph. There it is. Which one matches up to that? Well, that parabola is to the left of the y-axis. It's shaded down. That looks a whole lot like choice number 1. It's also shaded down because the less than symbol is telling us to shade down from the graph. That's all I got for that one. Radicals. To add radicals, I need to reduce first. I also need to know how to deal with negative radicals. Well, my first step in dealing with a negative radical, to get rid of the negative, we bring it outside and make it an I. Now, to reduce the radical, I'm going to make sure my perfect squares are written out. If you're too lazy to write your perfect squares, you get this problem wrong. Well, that's a poor choice that you made. Write your perfect squares out. It's 2 separate reducing problems when you're adding or subtracting. What goes into 24? Well, 24 would sit here, not 16, not 9, but 4 does. Radical 4 is 2. Then I end up with 10i, rad 6. 294. I don't know. I'm pretty sure 100 doesn't go into 294. I don't know my times tables for 294. So you have a couple of options. You can go down your list and divide them by 294, or you can use a calculator trick. 294 divided by x. Table. This will give you all your factors of 294. I want to find the largest perfect square that's on that list. So, well, I don't see 100, I don't see 81, I see 49 though. I see 49 and 6. So, my perfect square is 49, my non-perfect square is 6. Radical 49 is 7, then I get 7i, radical 6. There's a plus between them, so when I add them together, I get 17i radical 6. Find the center and radius of the circle whose equation is. Well, in order to find the center and radius, I need this thing in standard form. And to get this thing in standard form, I have to compute the square. So I'm going to start by writing the x's together, writing the y's together, and getting all the numbers to the other side. Now I'm going to complete the square for the x's. Let's get some space here. And I'm going to complete the square for the y's. So, to get the value that goes in the boxes, I do e over 2 squared. So for the x's, that's 10 over 2 squared, which is 5 squared, which is 25. Now I do it for the y's. For the y's, it's negative 4 over 2 squared, which is negative 2 squared, which is 4. Now I factor my x's, x plus 5, x plus 5, which is x plus 5 squared. I do my y's, y minus 2, y minus 2, which is y minus 2 squared. Again, it will always work out where it's the same factor. Equals 7 plus 4 plus 25 is 36. And now I'm in center radius form. So to find the center, I negate what's in the parentheses. So positive 5 becomes negative 5, negative 2 becomes positive 2. And the radius is the square root of the right-hand side. The square root of 36 is 6. Once you practice a couple of them, they're really pretty straightforward. So please practice as many as you need to until you're comfortable with them. Find the sum and product of the roots. When you see sum and product, you better think summa and produkka are two Russian planters that work on the roots. And as long as you know their names, you know that the formula for the sum of the roots is negative b over a, and the formula for the product of the roots is c over a. So a is 5, b is 11, c is negative 3. So negative b over a is negative 11 over 5, and you can just leave it as that. You can make it into a decimal if you want. That would be negative 2.2, I believe. And c over a would be negative 3 over 5. And again, you can just leave it like that. If you want to make it into a decimal, that would be negative 0.6. That's it. The only way to get the sum and product question wrong is you forget the formulas, or you forget to negate b. So do not forget to negate b. To negate b. Negative in a formula means to negate, to change the sign. Positive in the formula means to keep the sign. Moving along. Solve the following equation and express your answer in simplest radical 4. Well, I got Mr. X squared again here. I know he wants to party, and he can't party right now because all his friends have to come over. Once all of his friends come over, party time. I know they want to party with bubbles. However, by reading the question, I know that bubbles aren't going to work. I know it's not going to factor because it says simplest radical form. So when the bubble machine's broken, when you can't factor, we do the quadratic formula. And as far as the story goes, Mr. X squared busts out his guitar and sings it because we have our song to help us remember that. I'm not going to sing it for you now again. You can just check out that video separately. A is 2, B is negative 6, C is negative 3. So, negative B, if B is negative 6, negative B is positive 6. Plus or minus radical. Negative 6 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 3. If you did not put B in parentheses, you will get it wrong. So make sure you put it in parentheses. All over 2A. Next step, I'm going to go to my calculator, and I'm going to erase this green blob. And I'm going to type in what's underneath the radical. So it is negative 6 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 3, which is 60. So I get x equals 6 plus or minus radical 60 over 4. Now, off to the side, I'm going to reduce the radical. So, I'm going to break down my 60. I'm not going to pull out my perfect squares again, but you should have them written down already. 4 and 15, which is 2 radical 15. So I'm going to rewrite this again, but I'm going to replace the radical 60 with 2 radical 15. And my final step, if necessary, to reduce the fraction, can I take something out of all 3? Yep. I can take a 2 out of all 3. So my final answer is going to be 3 plus or minus 1 radical 15, or just radical 15, over 2. Quadratic formula, as long as you practice it, you should be comfortable with it. So practice as much as you need to until you're comfortable. Write an equation of a circle. Well, to write the equation of a circle, I need 2 pieces of information. I need my center, and I need my radius. Center is simple. Center is negative 3, 4. The radius is going to be the distance between the center and a point on the circle. To find the distance between 2 points, I'm going to use my distance formula. E equals radical change in x squared plus change in y squared. Now, I want you to do this by counting because it's a lot easier to make a mistake if you try to subtract. Let's say you can't. So in order to count, we're going to go and we're going to put this thing on graph paper. So I'm going to pull up my graph paper. If you're taking an exam and you ever want graph paper, you ask for it because on the Regents you will have it. So utilize it. There's my graph. So I'm going to kind of transfer the situation now onto graph paper. I have my center at negative 3, 4. Negative 3, 4. I've got 1 point at the origin, so that's the distance I have to find. The change in x. I'm starting here. 1, 2, 3. That's the change in x. The change in y. I'm starting here now. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all you do to find the change in x and change in y. 3 squared is 9. 4 squared is 16. That's radical 25. And the square root of 25 is 5. So my radius is 5. Now that I have my center and radius, well, I make 2 sets of parentheses with a plus between them. I negate the corner to the center. I square my radius. 5 squared is 25. And that's it. Again, this is the geometry question. Why is it in this course? I I can't tell you that. New York State doesn't know what they're doing. But it's not a problem because it's not difficult. I think we're up to the last problem. Yes. All right. This is a question you've seen quite a bit recently. You're going to continue to see it because they ask it all the time. 4-point question. It's not really that difficult. Again, once you practice it and know how to do it. Solving for x is a polynomial equation. So a polynomial equation is the same as Mr. X squared. They want to party. They can party right now. To party, what you're doing is you're factoring. There's no GCF here. There's no dots. There's no trinomial. This is grouping. So we're going to group it. The GCF for the first half is 4x squared. For the second half, well, first of all, because the sign is negative here, I need to be positive. I'm going to divide by a negative, and the GCF is 25. Second step in grouping is to combine my coefficients. It's 4x squared minus 25. Keep the like term. I grouped. Can you factor any further? I can, because I'm looking for a GCF, which I'm not finding. But what I am seeing is the difference of two squares. Plus minus, square root of each. Square root of 4x squared is 2x. Square root of 25 is 5. And now I'm setting each factor equal to 0. Let's do it in space over here. 2x plus 5 equals 0. Solve that one. I get x equals negative 5 over 2. You want to make that negative 2.5? Good for you. 2x minus 5 equals 0. Add 5 to both sides. Divide both sides by 2. X equals 5 over 2. X plus 2 equals 0. X equals negative 2. So my answers, I have plus or minus 5 over 2, and I have negative 2. I'm done. You're not. You have another day or two of studying to do, because you watching me do this video alone is not going to help you be successful on the exam. I think that it will help you. It's not going to lead you to success. You need to practice the problems. Not just the problems on the review sheet, but also the problems that you have in your notes from the old worksheets on these types of problems. The more you practice, the stronger you're going to be. Use this video, practice the problem on the review sheet, practice the problem on your old worksheets, utilize your key understandings, ask a friend for help, ask a neighbor, mom, dad, brother, sister, ask whatever you want. At this point, I'm going to say goodnight because I have other things to do other than math the rest of the day. You do not. Your test is soon. Good luck. Goodbye.